With Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow coming to theaters in just a few months, you might be wondering, should I read the comic book that it's based off of? Today, I'm planning on helping you answer that question, because sometimes reading the comic makes the movie that much better, and other times it completely steals the joy out of watching it. And while one of the most hyped characters in the movie was never actually in the comic, there's some juicy backstory there that you're going to want to know. So I put together a list of reasons you should and reasons you shouldn't read Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, the comic book. Before we dive in, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a geeky beat. And don't worry, to the best of my ability, we are going to be going spoiler free this entire time. Alright, let's dive in. The trailer dropped and blew everybody's mind, and just from watching it, I can already tell you that it will not be a panel for panel of the comic book. But with that said, here are reasons why you shouldn't read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow before watching the movie. First of all, the emotional beats. Because ultimately this book really isn't about the twists, it's about the moments, about the characters. It's about moral choices, lingering grief, and many other things. So if you decide to read the comic book, some of those will be spoiled. And I'm not going to mention which ones will be spoiled, but I can already tell you they've been laying the groundwork for a big one. One of the things that I personally loved about reading the comic book that I don't think will hurt the viewing experience too much is that we got to explore a side of DC we don't typically get to see, which is space, right? If you're into Green Lanterns, then of course you get to see a ton of space, and you already know a bunch about it, like I am and I do. But there were corners of the DC universe that I didn't know about that this comic book showcased. So if you want to be surprised by all the different locations that they go to and things like that, I highly recommend not reading the comic book, because there are some pretty cool places and concepts that you might want to avoid knowing. So last reason why you shouldn't read the comic book, there is creative overlap for sure. So Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow was written by Tom King, and he is also one of the main writers on the film. So that's a good thing, because it means that we're going to be getting something that feels a lot like the comic book. But in the case of this video that I'm making right here, maybe that's a reason why you don't want to read the comic book right away. Alright, so here are the reasons why you are in the green to read the comic book. The movie is already changing the formula. First of all, Lobo, never in the comic book. And while I'll get to some interesting tidbits in number 3 of why you should, that's already a massive change. And it lets us know that it's not a direct adaptation of what we read in the comic. And since character dynamics are such a huge part of this comic book, having Lobo in the mix completely changes everything. So because of this, reading the comic book might actually add some mystery to watching the movie, because you're going to be watching it wondering, oh, are they going to go this way? Or are they going to go that way? Ooh, is this the same beat as the last one? Personally, I kind of love doing that, so I'm excited for the movie for that reason. Number 2, you'll instantly understand the tone. I think that, especially with the trailer and a lot of stuff that we've seen, and especially including Lobo, the tone of the movie will surprise a lot of people, because it is pretty somber. It is very much character and emotionally driven, while still giving you great pieces of action and incredible moments, which I cannot wait to see depicted on the big screen. It is really an emotional story at its core. So by knowing that and understanding that, or even just watching this video, you kind of already have a better understanding of what you can anticipate when you walk into the movie theater. So now for the juicy piece of information that got me really excited. It turns out, according to Screen Rant, that Tom King initially had plans for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow to feature Lobo, and had an original idea and concept for that. So that's why I think that we're going to be getting a lot of the emotional beats and a lot of the backstory given to Supergirl from the comic, but ultimately the movie and the dynamic is going to be completely different, or at least completely different from what we got, and maybe very much aligned with what Tom King had in mind initially. And if Lobo is her companion on this journey, hands down, him and Ruthie could not be more different. So it's going to guaranteed be a completely different joyride. Final verdict on should you or should you not read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow before watching the movie? Ultimately, I think if you want the movie to hit as hard as possible, go in blind. Not having any of the information means you get to go in completely blind, not worry about your expectations, and just enjoy the movie. Or if you love emotional, psychological stories that take place in a sci-fi setting, then you definitely want to read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow before going to see the movie. It really comes down to you. Before closing out, if you don't want to read the comic, but you kind of want to have an understanding of what the big beats are in the comic book, well, stay tuned, because in the next coming weeks, I'll be releasing Catching Up on Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. where I'll highlight my favorite moments from the comic book. Now that I've laid out the groundwork, let me know in the comments, will you or won't you read the comic before watching the movie? And until next time, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification bell, and always keep it geeky.